Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Hannah and I make videos about sex and relationships, and this video is inspired by this tweet that was quoting an article that was all about how asking for consent ruins the mood. And it said, could there be anything more mood sapping than someone asking for formal permission to kiss you? This isn't a British period drama. Men don't really know who they're supposed to be anymore, and women don't either. Which, in case if you didn't know, is a hot take that I absolutely do not agree with. Consent is not only completely necessary, but it can be really, really hot. We live in a society that tells us that asking for consent, talking about safer sex practices, and discussing STI statuses is something that you're supposed to do before you get down to the sexy business, but it can absolutely be part of the sexy time too. And yes, non-verbal consent is absolutely a thing, but I want this video to basically be a defense of verbal consent. We're going to debunk the myth that verbal consent ruins the mood and talk about how these conversations about consent and safer sex can actually lead to better sex. So why do people think that verbal consent ruins the mood? You may hear lots of people saying that asking for verbal consent before you kiss or touch someone ruins the eroticism and the romance and destroys any spontaneity and just makes sex very boring and formulaic. There's this idea that verbal consent is anything but sexy, or even more harmful, that people don't actually want to be asked for consent. And it is valid to feel awkward about these conversations because, well, it can be awkward. Asking someone for consent, admitting that you want to have sex with someone can be uncomfortable or scary because you're being vulnerable. And because talking about safe words and STIs isn't exactly a turn-on for everybody, it can be really tempting to skip over these really important conversations and go straight to the sex. When I was at university, I definitely experienced hookup culture and had a fair amount of casual sex. And whilst all of the sex was consensual and some of it was good, there was also definitely some bad sex. And those tended to be the ones where me and the other person were just following a script of what we assumed that we should be doing and what the other person would be into, instead of actually checking in with each other and communicating what we wanted. The reality is that if your desire to fuck someone won't last beyond a quick conversation about what you want, STIs, and contraception, then maybe it wasn't going to be the best sex in the first place. We live in a very sex-negative society and we're not taught or shown or encouraged to communicate about sex and consent. And because it's not the norm, it becomes this big deal and people find it really awkward. But if we normalized it as part of being intimate with someone, it would just become a standard part of sex, which it really needs to be. Your fear of ruining the mood should never trump ensuring that you and your partner are both comfortable and want and enjoy what's happening. When it comes to communicating or asking for consent, we're not shown great examples of this in the media. So what are we shown instead? Consent in mainstream media. A lot of mainstream media tells us that sex should be spontaneous, with kisses in the rain that leads to super passionate fucking and makeout sessions that turn into sex without needing to pee. And don't even get me started on the whole, like, how do they get from the bar to home? They never show that middle bit. There's this idea that you should just be magically good at sex without ever actually asking your partner what they like, and we almost never see people asking for consent. Apparently, we're all meant to be incredibly skilled mind readers. So I remember watching Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves as a teenager, and there was this scene that really shocked me. And basically, the young girl's crush leans in to kiss her without asking first, and she pushes him away and is really angry at him for not asking for consent, even though throughout the movie it's very clear that she has a giant crush on him.
So what is it you wanted to tell me?
Nothing. Mostly I just wanted to do this.
What is she doing? She's too young. She doesn't even know that boy.
What are you doing?
Kissing you.
Well, you didn't ever ask.
Ask what?
Ask if I wanted to kiss you.
What are you talking about?
You just assumed that I wanted you to kiss me. I mean, I even know you. And even if I did know you and we talked and you got to know me and you asked me if I wanted to kiss, I might have been into it. But the way you did it was just wrong.
And I just remember feeling really taken aback watching that. It felt like such a plot twist because I'd never seen something like that before. Like, it didn't even cross my mind that she would want to be asked to be kissed. It was so different to all of these other messages that I was receiving that people, and especially women, just want to be swept off their feet with a kiss. Although rewatching that clip as an adult, there's also definitely some like purity culture, slut shaming, and I'm not like other girls kind of stuff going on too. There's also that scene in Friends with Benefits where Mila Kunis and Justin Timberlake's characters decide to have sex just as friends, and so they talk about all of their likes and dislikes and what they want to get out of it. And this is really cool, but throughout the scene they say they're only doing that because it's just sex and not a relationship. But why can't we do that with romantic partners too? And why are we so much more scared of being open and honest if feelings or a desire for a relationship are involved? They also don't talk about safer sex or even mention a condom, and I just think that is an opportunity missed. And with mainstream free porn, that is a whole other story when it comes to showing consent. So despite all of the messages around actually talking about consent, can it really be sexy? Spoiler alert, yes, it can. Talking about consent and safer sex can be sexy. Firstly, knowing that somebody is into you can be really fucking sexy. There is something super hot about someone explicitly telling you that they are into you and that they are down to fuck. Knowing that you and your partner are into the sex that you are having is very sexy, especially compared to having sex where one person isn't really into it and doesn't feel that comfortable. That is incredibly unsexy. Talking about safer sex can also lead to better sex because without having to worry about STIs or unintended pregnancy, everyone can maybe just like relax a little more. If worrying about STIs or unintended pregnancy is something that hits your sexual brakes, then having these conversations can help alleviate that to help you get into more of a sexy mindset and let your body and mind just get turned on. And if you want to learn more about the whole sexual brake and sexual accelerator thing, I've made a whole video about that, which you can watch up here. And knowing what your partner likes in bed means that you can be less worried about if you're pleasing them. It's kind of like being given a cheat sheet to having really good sex with them. Having these conversations beforehand and during can help us get out of our heads worrying about, are they into this? Am I doing this right? And actually just allow us to be in the experience. And also, information and trust is really sexy. These conversations don't just let you and your partner understand more about what you want to do together, but it can also build intimacy and trust, which, even if you're having a casual hookup, leads to really good sex. Do you need any further evidence that asking for consent is sexy? Well, I asked on my Instagram for people to share the hottest way that somebody has asked to do something sexual with them, and they delivered. What's the hottest way someone has asked to kiss you / do something sexual with you? My boyfriend drew pictures of us in sexual positions and I could point which ones. That's genius. Wrote it in a story and read it out to me. I was so worked up once they finished reading. These are so creative. First time with my ex, he was touching and staring at my vagina before asking, "Can I taste it?" Woo! My guy did something new, looked at me and asked, "Is this okay?" which made it so much hotter. Asked if they could undress me, touch me, kiss me, which made foreplay even hotter. Someone asked to drive me home so they could taste my cum again. She leaned in, "I can't focus on what you're saying because I want to kiss you. May I?" Asking if he can slap me / choke me while kissing me in a sensual voice. "I've been thinking about touching you all day. Can I do that?" Oof. Texted me across a crowded room, telling what is going to happen in graphic detail, then ask if I would like to go ahead with it. "I really love eating you out. Would you like to sit on my face?" It's simple, but just looking me in the eye and saying, "Can I fuck you?" My partner and I exchanged not safe for work art we'd like to emulate or find particularly hot. Yes, I love this. I remember a friend of mine telling me that before Tumblr got rid of all of its porn, they would have like a private Tumblr where they reblogged like porn gifs, like erotic stuff that they found really hot, and they would share the link to their private Tumblrs with each other so they could see what the other person was like reposting and sharing and looking at. in sign language. Love that. If you've got other languages that you can speak, you know, go for it. Do you want me? And then, do you want me to do something about that? This is so not safe for work, but they said, do you want daddy to fuck you like a good girl? And wow. Yes. Love it. While sexting, the person asked if he could send me a pic of his cum, hot on its own to ask that. Walked into the bedroom with a collar and asked, may I put this on you before we start? On the first date, he asked me if he could spank my ass. Instant wetness, we're getting married. Made a PowerPoint presentation of why it would be great. It was. I'm down for anything, so I'll let you take charge. We can do as much or as little as you want. Saucy, saucy. Although, I don't believe people when they say they're down for anything. Everyone's got their limits, so just check in with that. If I wanted to put my cock in your mouth, would you be willing to take it? I want to fuck you, but I want to hear you say you want it. Asking, may I, before taking my pants off, making it seem like the most natural thing ever. What if the massage I will give you leads to something else? Before this goes anywhere, I need to know you want me as much as I need you. Yes, just like establishing that you're both like really fucking into each other. Those examples were incredible. Honestly, I think I might put all of them into a PowerPoint presentation and show them to Dan. Hopefully some of these examples have given you some inspiration, some ideas, some tips for sexy ways of asking for consent. But here are a couple more. Tips for talking about consent and safer sex. You could do it via text. If having these conversations isn't something that you're very used to yet, it could be awkward. And so talking about things like dental dams, or if you want to bring your vibrator, could be easier to do over text than in person. While face-to-face conversation and check-ins are really important, I'd rather you just be talking about sex than not at all. So write things down if it's easier for you. Make it playful. These conversations are crucial, but it doesn't mean that they have to be super serious. You can flirt and be silly, send your partner a nude or a picture of a bottle of lube and ask if they want you to bring it with you. There are lots of different ways that you can bring up the topic of sex and ask about what your partner wants or share what you might want. And this can be a really fun and playful, saucy thing. Sex educator Justin Hancock also just recently released some consent teaching resources that he made. There's the How to Have Consensual Sex zine and How to Ask Someone Out Consensually flowchart. Did I just say flowchart? Yes, I did. I'll leave a link to where you can get them and support Justin's work in the description. And I really love that resources like this and Bish, the site that Justin runs, exist. We need to be talking to young people about consent and giving them templates on how to navigate sex and relationships consensually. So I think we can safely say that we've established that explicit verbal consent can be seriously sexy. But talking about sex and getting consent is still not seen as a standard part of sex. However, we have had recently some really brilliant mainstream media examples showing explicit verbal consent, and I just really hope that these help to normalize having conversations about this. Excellent media examples of explicit consent. We are starting to get some media that shows messier and more realistic depictions of sex, and I am so here for it. I asked on my Instagram for folks to share their favorite pieces of media that depicts consent and safer sex practices, and as I should have predicted, like 90% of the responses were sex education and Normal People. Loads of people mentioned the scene in Normal People where Marianne and Connor sleep together for the first time, where we see explicit verbal consent and the putting on of a condom. The other popular one was the Maeve and Isaac scene from Sex Education Season 3, which is one that I also personally really love. We get to see intimate and hot sexual communication between two people, figuring out what feels good for them, what they want, where they can touch each other, and with a disabled character too. And outside of films and TV, another place where we can see some great examples of consent and safer sex practices is in erotica and romance books. Erotica and romance have more representation of women and other folks of marginalized genders, LGBTQ+ folks, BIPOC people and disabled folks getting published and getting their voices out there compared to other genres. Of course, there are white, straight, cis men writing erotica, but they don't have the same chokehold that they do when it comes to directing films or producing TV shows. This means that you're much more likely to find diversity in authors, characters, and sexual relationships in written erotica and romance than in mainstream media. And we also see a lot of explicit verbal consent. I've been really getting into romance books the last couple of years, and I am definitely a fan of how consent and discussions around how the characters want to have sex are weaved into the story. I've mentioned the Brown Sisters books by Talia Hibbert in past videos, and I wanted to share a scene with you from the second book, Take a Hint, Danny Brown, that shows some really, really hot sexual consent. "Are you touching yourself?" he asked, an edge to his voice that sounded like urgency. She spread her legs wider and eased her middle finger through her hot, slippery folds. "Yes." "Want some help?" His voice was slow, velvet thin. She rubbed her clit frantically, her breath labored. "Fuck yes, please." Whew! I love it. So what do we think? Do verbal consent, safer sex conversations, and talking about sex ruin the mood? I personally think they heighten the mood. It's super important that we normalize these conversations because talking about sex and checking in for consent aren't just really hot, they're also really, really essential. We need to change our culture to one where asking for consent is the norm and not the exception. And we can do that slowly by making small changes in our own sex lives. Thank you so much for watching. I would love to hear from you in the comments about any other media recommendations, any favorite books, films, or TV shows that show consent and safer sex conversations really well. And, if you're feeling a bit spicy and you want to share, you could also share some of the sexy ways that people have asked for your consent in the past as well. Thank you so much to my patrons who support me and help make these videos possible. I hope that you're all doing well, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!